psychic Halley Elise shares the spiritual, metaphysical, holistic, and magical powers of the universe. Follow Halley on her website at HalleyElise.com, and all her shows can be seen via live stream video. Now, here's your host, Empowerment Psychic Halley Elise.
Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you folks could join us. I have a great guest this evening. You're going to be hearing a lot about her. She just came out with a fabulous new book, and by the way, thank you for including me. And you are definitely wanting to get your hands on this. Good English. I knew I was going to be tripping over my words again, just like last week. There's a flow there. Anyways, the 100 top psychics and astrologers in America. Let's see if we can get that nice and straight for you so that you can see it. Brand new book just out. Now, our guest is Paulette Cooper, who is not only the author of the 100 Top Psychics of America, but also has written in entirety, I believe, 20 books, if that's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in this book, you're going to find that you get the real story behind psychics. But before we dive into all of that, I want to at least say thank you for being here and hello, and make sure you say hi to everybody who's listening and watching this evening.
Hi, hello.
We almost didn't have you between the craziness with directions and locations. I was ready to get on the air and go, okay, she's coming. I know she is. It's just a matter of timing, but you made it, so that's awesome. Now, you include in the book literally the real story behind America's most famous and well-known psychics, mediums, astrologers, healers, people that have been on TV, and you've only included America. I have to ask right off the bat, why? I'm curious.
Well, I interviewed most of the people in the book, and it was just easier to interview people in the United States than to start calling England and so on.
That actually makes a lot of sense, yes.
Right. And also the book is geared for people to go to these people or to call them. And again,
Right.
They're not that likely to call a psychic or an astrologer in England.
Right. I did notice that in all of the interviews that are done, and there are 58 great interviews in the book, that they have their phone number, they have their email, they have their web address, they have every which way to be contacted, including, a story about them in their own words, which I think is fabulous, because so often a writer will do it from their point of view. I met this psychic, this was my experience. You actually ask them questions and allow them to answer from their perspective.
Yes, and since I give their website, people can go and generally check out the experience of these people for themselves.
Right.
This way, they have a chance to tell people how they got started and what they do and what their favorite cases are and what their specialties are.
Right.
There were a lot of specialties in the book.
Absolutely.
They were fun.
Well, it's interesting that you say specialties, because I think we need to clarify for the audience that astrologers and psychics are not necessarily the same thing.
That's right.
There's a distinction
And also
there.
people don't understand what's the distinction with mediums.
Correct.
Mediums are people who claim to be able to talk to those who have passed
dead.
on. Right,
Right.
exactly. As one medium said to me, I'm just a basic New Jersey lady who talks to the dead.
Right.
So, and astrologers use the stars to
Yes.
help understand people.
Well, they chart the stars, and from that, it's more of, we'll say, a scientific approach, even though society doesn't always recognize it as such.
Yes, although increasingly people are accepting astrology and psychic and
Right.
medium.
Right.
And certainly TV helps when they put a lot of these
for
people
sure.
on.
For sure, and I want to share that. I always tease because people say, "Oh, are you a medium?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, what do you do?" And it's very funny because there is such a vast array of psychic phenomena. I mean, I work claircognizantly, I work clairvoyantly, I work audiently, telepathically, etc. And that doesn't make me a medium, though. And
Right.
I think it's kind of amusing because they go, "Oh, you don't speak to the dead." It's like, wow, I can't do it all. It's like if you go to a pastry chef, they're going to make you pastries. They're not necessarily going to make you a steak. So, there is that individualistic, if you will, approach to things. But it's also a matter of a gift. Everybody has their own gift, their own way of receiving information. I want to share that when it comes to mediumship, it's kind of fascinating because there seems to be an impetus to go see mediums. Why do you think that is?
I think people want the comfort of being able to talk to someone who has passed on. and that's why they become increasingly popular. But as one of them said, it can be a disappointing thing also, because they may go to a medium expecting to have some wonderful conversation with their dearly departed Aunt Tutty or something, and all that they're going to hear is "I'm okay" or "I forgive you" or something like that. It's not like it was going to be
like a full-blown conversation.
That's right. So they're probably better off going to a psychic and finding out about their life as opposed to someone else's death.
Right. Then again, I think there are moments when going to a medium is very helpful because somebody, I can't seem to get over the loss because they're so concerned that the person who passed is in pain still, or that they're lost among the cosmos. And this way, they get that assurance, they get that calm that's needed in their life.
That's right.
So again, I think each of us serves a different purpose in the way that we share information. And in the book, you have a plethora of people with, I'm going to say, diverse backgrounds. And I have to, of course, I think you know where I'm going to go here because this is so exciting. Also, one of my favorite topics, the sex psychic.
Yes.
You know, I was reading about her. And I said, I missed my calling.
Yes, and she is doing very, very well.
I
really
understand that. And, you know, I'm reading about her and I'm saying, she's very warm, you know. She's just very down to earth and very matter of fact about what she's doing and having a great time. What made you think about putting her in the book? Because everybody else is, I'm sorry, straight-laced. I mean, we're all individual, but
I have pet psychics in the book. I have all kinds of specialists. I have a vintage store psychic in the book. She goes to a vintage store and using psychometry tells people, tells the owner or the potential buyer who owned that before and what their story is and why they gave it up. So there's lots of things, but let's talk about the sex psychic.
Yes.
That's what everyone wants to talk about.
Everybody wants to know about sex.
Okay. And the sex psychic is, she says, look, people are embarrassed to talk about sex, even to their psychic. So they come to her so they can talk about that. And here's where it gets a little bit woo-woo, and that is that she claims that she talks to their sex organs.
Interesting.
Yes, and that sometimes she finds out that the sex organs want something different than what the person thinks. For example,
I need the left side massage versus the right.
No. More along the line of their genitals would prefer, say, cuddling further north.
Gotcha.
As opposed to... Okay, that's about all I think we can say.
Yeah, we have to be careful of certain words. There are certain specific words we're not allowed to announce or say on the radio, but I don't know that you would have gone... Well, I could have. Okay, we're going to stay away from that.
We're avoiding it, okay?
I think so. Okay, so in the book, I noticed that the format is really very easily read. You did like 3 pages on each of the psychic, and what's kind of cool is you have the opportunity to find out how they start. You have the opportunity to kind of know what their life is like, as well as interesting cases. Now, I'm curious, because the book is filled with interesting information. What about you, though? When it comes to interesting cases from all the people that you interviewed, what was the one that stands out for you?
Oh, I really can't say that one is better than the other without getting a lot of people...
No, well, I'm not asking better. I'm asking what stands out the most.
Well, I'm a huge shopper. I've even written books on shopping, so I did like talking to the vintage
the one who
vintage
uses psychometry.
Psychic.
I love it.
Very, very much. And
That's
the sex
awesome.
psychic certainly was amusing, but I am a pet person. I even write a pet
That's
column.
probably why we both know Tina.
Yes, that's right. I even write a pet column. So I found very interesting the psychic in the book who was the pet psychic. She's very well known. And I enjoyed talking with her, and she told me a lot about people who come to her whose pets have passed over and they can't get over it.
Aww.
And yes, and then she tells them, she gets in touch with the pets, or she says she gets in touch with the pets and convinces people that they are still here. And they may be sending them a sign, or they may still be sleeping on the pillow next to them. And so I found her to be a great interview because of my love of animals.
Makes sense. And I know many people, and you probably do as well, that have pets who have passed, and there seems to be a connection where they will wander into a room to get something and they feel like little Fluffy brushed up against them, even though little Fluffy hasn't been there for a while. There's that knowing that they're still around. And I think it's great when you have somebody who can assure them that, yes, this is true, it's not your imagination.
That's right.
Because so often you go, well, I miss Fluffy so much, I must be imagining this. I must be seeing this, in my mind's eye, and I need to go to a doctor.
Well, also, she says that your Fluffy may be reincarnated into your current cat, and that can be very comforting to know that your departed pet is actually still here with you.
I've heard, too, that at times you will find that there are two individuals or two entities living within an animal at one time. So not a reincarnation per se, but almost like the animal tagged along. Because a lot of times you'll find somebody who says, this one reminds me of Fluffy, but does that really weird thing that's so not Fluffy. And then you have to wonder, is there perhaps the essence that's still there and yet the animal's individuality? I mean, we could probably do a whole program just on that with the pets.
Yes.
Especially for people who love animals. Well, maybe we'll think about that because that would be awesome. So I want to let everybody know that you can go to a really easy website to get more information about Paulette, more information about the book, of course, to purchase the book. It's 100, like the number 100psychics.com. Real easy. Okay, so onward and forward. I want to know what your inspiration was to come up with this. I know that you wrote a book on psychics before, years back, but so let's backtrack to the first book you wrote on psychics. What was your inspiration?
Well, actually, at that time, I was an investigative reporter. Now I've gotten fluffier and write about pets and things like that. But I was an investigative reporter, and I started off very negatively that this was going to be another expose. I wrote a famous expose of Scientology. And instead, I found that a lot of them, first of all, they were and continue to be fascinating people to talk to, whether or not one believes that it's the sixth sense or common sense that gives them the information that they impart to you. But I just found that they had helped so many people, and that many people who, for example, would never in a million years want to go to a therapist, psychologist, go to a psychic and get a great deal of comfort from it. So I decided then and now, let's find out who the best are and get their story, because one of the things that's happening, which is very bad, is that people call these phone psychics, phony hotline psychics, or they're driving along and they see a
palm on the side
of the road, or one of them approaches them at a fair or something, and they don't know anything about people that help them to make very major decisions in their life.
Since you brought that up, let's focus on that for a moment. I was going to actually hold that to the end of the show, but I think it's really important. It's funny, I was talking with Barbara Norcross, who is also a wonderful psychic, and we were saying that one of our pet peeves is the fact that people don't really know. They don't know who to go to. They don't know if somebody's bad or good, or it's just a matter of they are longing for something. They want to see maybe this person can help them. How do you differentiate who to go to?
You read my book.
Oh, see, there you go.
For start,
show the book again.
unless you know something about their background.
He's not switching it.
At least go to.
Put it there.
At least find out if they have a website or a Facebook page, and go to that and find out some information about them.
That makes sense.
Don't just pick up the telephone and think that some stranger is really going to help you like that.
I mean, I do have to go there for a moment, because some folks who are legitimately psychic just work over the phone simply because they're reclusive, or they're elderly or infirm in some way, and it's easier for them to work on the phone and perhaps are connected with a line. The problem is not all the lines are legitimate, and not all the psychics working are legitimate. You may have a handful, but I think overall you're correct in saying that you need to search out the information, do a little research, find out. I think also referral is really the best way to go.
Recommendation is, in your case, you were recommended by a few people. I didn't even go with just one person. I asked everybody, had they been to somebody, what was she like? A really good psychic can usually make it without advertising, just by word of mouth. Because if they're not good, no one's going to recommend them. They're not going to have business. This brings me to something else, and that is that when I wrote this first book in 1996, there was just about no internet. Nowadays, you can really, not only can you look people up, but I think that the caliber of people like you is so much higher than it was in 1996, because the bad people get weeded out, because there are
I hadn't thought about that, but it's a great point.
Absolutely, because there's all kinds of websites
and
now.
And rating programs, I think, that are phenomenal.
And if you put someone's name in, a lot of negative things can come up.
Sure.
And a lot of people that I considered in the book, and I read things and I just took them right out. I wouldn't put them in. So you really can learn a lot more. And incidentally, a lot of psychics, do you work with Skype?
On occasion.
Good, because I find that that's another way that people can communicate more directly than just from the phone. A lot of psychics now are using Skype.
Sure.
They're using email.
Yeah, I do. I've been for years now. Well, you figure my, if you will, prowess with the web is kind of funny, because I love technology. It doesn't always like me. So I started probably about 10 years ago with really getting into the whole emails, and I've got clients that are out of state and out of country. It's not always convenient for them to call, or, even the Skype. The Skype really only came to me a few years ago, I'm sad to say. People had been talking about Skype, saying, oh, you should Skype. I'm like, what's that?
Yes. Okay.
So for me, that's been minimal, but it's a great resource to have the web, to have the ability to email at 2 o'clock in the morning. If somebody has sent you a question and you just couldn't get to it, you know that you still get to take care of them.
Absolutely. And a lot of people have problems at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when it comes up. That's when they need somebody desperately.
That's
so the web is wonderful.
We're going to take a short break, and then we will be right back with Paulette Cooper and this wonderful book. Thank you.
Times are tough, and right now those in the commercial world know that being heard via advertisements is the name of the game. AmpSquare.tv understands how important advertisement is and is proud to express that it's truly the only plugged-in internet television production company on the market. Amp2.tv live streams all their shows across all the major selling markets in the U.S. and abroad. Call them at 866-224-5422. The AmpSquare.tv library allows productions to be seen over and over again, making commercial platforms more usable. Call 866-224-5422. Toll free 866-224-5422. Amp2.tv, the first and only internet television network that's truly plugged in. 866-224-5422. That's AMP2.TV. You're listening to Empowerment Psychic Halley Elise, and she invites you to visit her website for more information about all that she does at HalleyElise.com. Now, back to your host, Empowerment Psychic Halley Elise.
Hi, this is Halley, as you just heard a moment ago. Having a great time here with author Paulette Cooper of the 100 Top Psychics and Astrologers in America. And I got listed in the book, so I'm very excited. You should see me. I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, guess what? She's like, what are you saying? I think I called her at 11 o'clock at night. And she's like, honey, I'm going to sleep. I'm like, no, wait, let me tell you this. So it's kind of fun.
Well, one of the nice things that happened, the book just came out recently, but one of the psychics in it emailed me, and she said that she had sent a copy to her mother, and that her mother had never understood what she did, and there was a great separation, and that now her mother understood her, and they were so much closer.
Aww.
And she wrote and thanked me, and I thought that was really sweet. I was very pleased with that.
Absolutely. See, you do good. So, in your opinion, are all psychics the same?
Oh, no, not at all. And as I say, are all people the same? They're all different. They all come from different backgrounds. I think if they had anything in common, it's that many of them, from the time they were young, they knew they were different. They felt they were tuning into something that other people were not. It was not always appreciated, especially by their parents. But very often, instead of reading Run, Dick, Run, they were reading metaphysical books. Instead of playing with pickup sticks, they were playing with tarot cards. You see, now this is what you did. It's it's something that seems to have started when they were very, very young. Many of them then repressed it, partially because their parents would say, stop talking to yourself, because actually they were talking to their guardian angels, but the parents would say, and don't walk down the street talking to yourself. and how dare you say that your school teacher is pregnant, even though a week later it came out that she was pregnant.
That she was.
So the parents have stifled a lot of this, and then it came out later for many of these people. So,
well, you know what I think is interesting about that? A couple of folks in the book, as you know, are friends of mine, and I'm going to mention one name, Joseph. And it's funny because we talk about Lubruto, the medium. We talk about different backgrounds, and you know, when he first saw his grandma and he started to talk to people and tell them about things going on, his parents were like, what are you doing? Thankfully, my mom wasn't like that. It was like, ooh, I think you're psychic. Let's go to a class. There's a program over here. There's a thing here. And she was very encouraging. So I'm very grateful, because not a lot of parents are that way. And most of my friends, not all, but most of them who were in the psychic field had that similar experience, similar to Joseph, where it was like, shh, or like you were saying, don't talk to yourself. People are going to think there's something wrong with you. Or how could you know that?
That's right.
Who are you listening to?
That's right.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
And it could be a little scary. And also, people would repress and suppress those innate abilities, and then all of a sudden, you know, somewhere down the line, they're like, wait, I have a vague memory of this. Why does this seem familiar? What I find is at some point it's reignited. If they have suppressed it, it somehow shows up somewhere in their life, and even if they're doing a totally different career, they tend to open up to it. Do you find that's true as well?
Oh yes, most of them were in very different careers. One of them was a cabaret singer, very successful cabaret singer.
That's fine.
The John Belushi, remember him?
Yes.
His sister is a psychic, and she was a hairdresser. Many of them are in healing arts, you know, teaching yoga, exercise, and so on.
Right.
And then they kind of moved over.
Well, what's kind of neat about this is I don't think being psychic means you have to be mutually exclusive to being psychic. You know, I did makeup artistry for many years, but I used to find it interesting that some of the rock stars and people I worked with would start talking to me about things that really I should know nothing about, and say to me, what do you feel about that? And they didn't even know anything.
Well, they sensed that you were,
but they sensed
your
something.
innate abilities,
right.
is what happened.
But see, that's the interesting thing, and that's why I think it's kind of fun if somebody is, let's say, as you said, in the cabaret, and is also doing, you know, psychic stuff. I think you have the opportunity to be, quote unquote, a real person, because otherwise we get lumped in with the woo-woos.
Yes.
You know, those are the ones that we were talking about briefly before. What's your opinion of the high-profile psychics, the ones that are on TV or that are always in the news?
Oh, well, here's the problem with the very famous psychics who are on television. It is easy to edit those shows. So you think, my gosh, these people, they know everything. They approach somebody in a supermarket while they're buying lettuce and know their entire life. But you don't ever see the 10 people that they approached and said the wrong thing. So
interesting.
That's why I don't put very much store in these people. So they're all, by the way, mediums.
Right.
And
I noticed that too, and I was curious about that. But I think medium is the buzzword right now.
Yes, there are many more mediums than there were when I did this book in '96. But if I were to go to somebody, I would go to a psychic, not a medium.
It's interesting because, as I mentioned, you know, people keep asking, "Are you a medium?" And I'm like, "No, sorry, I don't talk to the dead." You know, and I play it off. I know people who do. I can, you know, share.
Okay.
But what's funny about that is, even if you have never, let's say, seen the other side and talked to someone who's deceased, being psychic, depending on what your awareness is, you can actually sense the deceased. You know, I'll give an example. I've had clients sit in the room where all of a sudden I had like a mom feeling, for lack of a better way to share it, and said, you know, your mom's passed away, right? And the person's like, yeah. I'm like, well, she's hanging out. You know, that is the best way for me to express it, because it's more of a sentient awareness than it is a visual or an auditory. There have been moments, though, where I've heard somebody say something, like, tell my daughter so-and-so, and I'll actually say, okay, I'm just sharing what I'm hearing, because I always feel a little and easy. Sharing something from somebody that I can't see, which is different from, just allowing information to flow. And what fascinates me is the person on the other side receiving it always says, "Oh, thank you, I needed that." So it's just an interesting thing that folks who are mediums have no qualms about saying this as if it were an absolute. I tend to be a little more reticent when it comes to that thing. But I guess everybody is unique.
Well, many people now calling themselves psychic mediums.
Right.
So that to say
they
that,
cover everything.
That they can speak to those who have passed on.
Right.
And even astrologers, there's one astrologer who's doing, quote, death horoscopes right now, in
That's
which when you tell the person when, say, your mother passed over, she will draw a map of how she's doing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, is she in the book?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
So once again, I want to share with everyone, be sure to go to the website. You can't miss it. Top 100. No, wait a minute. The other one. 100 Psychics. See, there's two, but we wanted to give you the easy one. 100psychics.com. Paulette, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to see if we can't squeeze in one quick question before we're off, and that is, do you think psychics should tell people that they're going to die?
Most of them do not, but they may say to them, say that you see that someone's going to be killed in a plane crash. You might say, I wouldn't fly right now if I were you.
Right, and that's how I phrase it too.
That's the best way to do it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it, and we'll have to have you come on again. Everybody, Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching, and we'll see you next week on the Halley Elise Show. Good night.
Be enchanted and delighted. Connect each week here on WNN for the Halley Elise Show. Also on Facebook and at HalleyElise.com. Thanks for tuning in.